You are well. I have a lot to say today, and I'm going to try to pull it all together and bring it into alignment with some of the energetic themes that are going on in September and kind of tie it all together for you. And I have a little bit of a personal share in here too. So, September is upon us. We're 8 days in, and one of the themes of September is about finding your flow. It's one of the first themes of September. And the way that I'm seeing that show up for most of my clients and myself included is around the emotional body. And when we don't have flow in the emotional body, how that impacts our entire being, including our physical body and its energy levels. And I'm just back from 5 days in one of the most magical places on this planet, in my opinion, which is we spent some time at Floyd Yoga Jam in Floyd, Virginia. And the crew there has created this amazing container that basically allows people to be incredibly free to be themselves. And as soon as you pull into the valley, it makes me tear up just thinking about it. You feel like you're surrounded by love and you can just be very present with whatever is happening for yourself and take care of yourself and do yoga or go meditate or go just sit in nature. And everybody is free just to be them. And you can see it on people's faces. They're not weighed down by what's happening in the world. They're not weighed down by what's happening at home for them and their job and all these other things. And it's just such a special gift to be able to experience that kind of energy, which is what I really think we're building here on this planet and where we're headed when we create the new earth. And one of the themes that's been coming up for me personally very strongly is this idea of the suppressed feminine within each of us. And I don't mean feminine in terms of gender, although that is definitely in the news right now. If you are in the United States and you know anything about what's happening in Texas, there's a lot of talk right now about the feminine rights and our rights as females being suppressed. And so that is a huge part of this conversation and the way this energy is coming to the surface. But at a broader level, what I'm seeing is that the suppressed feminine in each of us is our deep desire to just be in a state of relaxation and ease and grace, and to be able to be whole and seen in our emotions and not shamed for having our emotions. And I think that this is a theme across the board, regardless of your gender or how you gender identify. And I believe that it's coming to the surface so strongly right now and being felt so strongly by so many of us because it has to change in order for us to really anchor the new earth frequencies that we are in the process of creating here on this planet right now. And, the new earth is this idea that we are able to all be in our uniqueness and in our autonomy while also being connected in community. And that is, if I was to sum up the energetics of the new earth, it's that, right? And it will show up in all of our systems. So our government, our education system, our corporate systems, our taxes, and our financial system. It's coming to the surface in all of those systems. And so many of those systems were created in a frequency where the feminine within each of us, where we are cyclical in nature and we are emotional beings, is suppressed. And the way this has been showing up for me very loudly, and I'm hoping some of you can relate to this, is as a deprogramming of some of the things that got programmed into me as I became a part of the corporate container in the corporate business world for 12 years. And the last night that we were at Floyd, we went to bed. There's like 5 of us staying in an RV. It was like a really fun adventure of trying to sleep with everybody's different energies going on. And at probably 6:30 in the morning, I drop into a really deep dream state, and I'm having an incredibly vivid dream where I'm in a corporate setting, and in that corporate setting, there's a lot of pressure. I'm working on some major project. This could be any day of my life when I was a program and project manager at Bank of America many years ago. And I'm in a corporate setting, and there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of deadlines, there's a lot of requirements being placed on me. And at some point in some meeting in this dream, I have a emotional outburst, I guess you could call it. I get a little angry, a little upset. And instead of somebody saying to me, gosh, it seems like you're really stressed out and it seems like you're doing a lot, I wonder how we could help you, they proceed to literally turn on me in my dream and basically ostracize me for having any emotion whatsoever. And in the dream, it was so vivid. I felt like my entire being was being crushed and made smaller, and that my heart was breaking, literally breaking in two, because as a woman in that setting, I wasn't allowed to have emotion. I wasn't allowed to express myself. I wasn't allowed to share my displeasure with the fact that there was so much pressure being put on us as a team to deliver on something that probably wasn't really that important. And instead of being supported by my peers, I was turned on. And about that time in the dream, the alarm goes off because we have to pack up the RV and get up in the morning. And I wake up and I'm still in this state of major contraction. And if I was at home, I might have just stayed in bed. But because I'm in an RV with other people, I decide, okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to walk outside. And the entire time that we've been on this land, last weekend, the land was speaking to me, and I did so much work to clear the land and to support the land and to help people cross over while we were on this land. And I walked outside, and it was really funny because my guides had said, whatever you do, don't pack up the outdoor mat. Make sure you leave it out. And I thought, oh, they just don't want us to step in the grass in the morning. No, what actually happened is I walked outside of the RV and I sat down on the outdoor mat, and it had rained all night long. And they really didn't want my butt to get so wet. And that's why the outdoor mat needed to be there. And I sat down and I heard really clearly, just give it to the earth. And so I put my hands on the earth, and this loud wailing, screaming, crying started to come out of me. And in that moment, I was not only releasing all of this energy from this dream and this real visceral felt experience and trauma that I actually went through many times in the corporate space, but I could feel every person on this planet and how so much of our feminine energy, our emotions, our intuition, our desire to be connected to the earth and be in cycles was being so repressed and suppressed, and how as I was crying, I was releasing not only for me, but for so many other people. And thank goodness my friend Holly was there, and she came out and she started working with me with her selenite swords and started to help move the energy because it was really intense. And this has been building for me for a couple of months. I worked with a client about a month and a half ago that triggered this remembrance of how difficult it was for me to be in that corporate environment and how much of myself I had to squash in order to be in that environment. And so that got triggered a couple of months ago. And so it's been building to this release, and I'm still working through it. But I'm struck by the timing of this for me and what's happening in Texas, and then what's happening in the greater collective as I'm watching people choose not to go back to jobs, not to go back to working in fast food for money that isn't sufficient for them to live. And I'm watching the anger and the frustration and the reactions of people who are judging those people for not going back to just fit into the mold that they came from. And how beautiful this process is, even though it's so difficult, that we are starting to shift the climate of business on this planet. We are starting to shift the dynamic where in order to be successful, you have to sacrifice who you are as a human, and you have to pull back from your truth. And I just am so wonderfully amazed at how this process is going down for all of us, and just seeing how all of these pieces are coming together to support us in no longer needing to suppress these parts of ourselves. And if you're a woman, we also have menstrual cycles, and we have all these other cycles that we have to deal with within the feminine body that haven't been honored as well, right? And so there's so many changes that are going to come onto this planet to support us, to honor all of the parts of us, and to be in our autonomy and to be in our uniqueness while also being in community and supporting one another. And I was just in awe in this experience that I personally had of this huge emotional release of some really deep trauma and quite frankly, some anger, some really deep anger that has existed in me for so long because I wasn't allowed to just be me. And I want to speak about anger specifically for just a second because we've got a lot of Mars energy going on astrologically, and we have for some weeks now. And that's showing up as a lot of anger coming to the surface. And I have heard from so many clients in the last couple of weeks, I'm not allowed to get angry. I'm not allowed to express that anger. And when we suppress it or we repress it inside of ourselves, it often explodes out on other people, right? And so we've been so conditioned that anger as a frequency is bad or not spiritual enough or not holy enough. And so we often hold that inside. And I think that we have to move through an unwinding of that programming so that we can all learn that anger is just another frequency, right? It's just another word. It's just another vibration on the spectrum to be experienced here as a human. And when that doesn't have such a charge, the anger can come up quick, it can fire through us, and it can be released without creating destruction around us. But right now, there's so much that has been so suppressed and so repressed in our emotional bodies that many of us don't have a lot of control over that energy when it comes to the surface. And it's requiring the people in our lives to be incredibly patient with us as this comes to the surface, because oftentimes we might shout that anger at someone who doesn't deserve it. And then we have to deal with the shame that comes up because we've lost our temper towards somebody and they didn't deserve it. And so that is a part of this process too. And when we find our flow in our emotional body, and the emotional body lives in the sacral chakra, in the low belly, and when we find our flow in the emotional body, it's quite like a river, right? And it just flows. The emotions come up, they come to the surface, they bob along the top of the river. We are able to observe them, are able to feel them, and then they float on down. And so this theme of finding your flow this month, I think, is really tied into not only being in the flow of your day and not suppressing yourself and not repressing your cycles, but also being in the flow of your emotions and allowing them wherever you can to come to the surface without judgment. And if we all can step into that, then we can heal all of these divides so much more quickly. If we can start to honor our individual emotions and not project them onto one another, we can start to move through this very, very quickly. And so those are just a few things on my mind right now. I'm processing a lot as I am watching these energies flow in September. There's a lot of other themes coming to the surface, specifically around working with our inner child and bringing courage forward to be in our uniqueness in our inner child landscape. And so that's what we're going to focus on next week in Healing Circle. So I'll be back on Facebook Live early next week to talk more about that. So just a few thoughts for you all today. Comment, let me know how this lands for you. Let me know how maybe this theme of the suppressed feminine within you is showing up. Let me know how you're feeling. I'd love to hear from you about what's going on for you in this moment. And I hope you have an amazing day wherever you're watching this. I hope you're well, and I will speak to you all soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.